Hello, and welcome back to the Calm and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Janine Halloran, and today I want to talk about 3 benefits of using distraction coping skills. So, I love using distraction as a coping skill. Some of you may know that I actually divide up coping skills into 5 types, and I've talked about this before. I think it was episode 4 of the Calm and Connected podcast, and I'll link to that in the show notes. So, those 5 types are relaxation, movement, sensory, processing, and distraction. So today I'm just focusing on distraction and explaining that a little bit more in detail and wanting to share with you why I think it's so great and why it's so helpful for kids. Distraction coping skills are skills that are focused on playing and fun activities. And one question I get a lot is that are kids avoiding, are kids suppressing, are kids denying their feelings when they use distraction coping skills? And my answer is absolutely not. We do not want kids to avoid their feelings. We don't want them to suppress anything. That's not going to be helpful to them in the long run. But there are some benefits of using distraction coping skills. So the first benefit that kids have from using distraction coping skills is it gives their brain a break from fight, flight, or freeze. And it gives their brains a chance to go back down to rest and digest mode. So if kids are having super intense anxiety, if they're having super big emotions, sometimes they get into that fight, flight, or freeze. Their heart rate is up, their breathing is shallow, their muscles are tense and tight. And sometimes the best thing for them to do to help them shift out of that fight, flight, or freeze response back down to a rest and digest response is to do something playful, is to do something to take their minds off of whatever is causing such an extreme anxiety for them. So that's why I actually really do enjoy using distraction as a coping skill. When kids would come into my office, sometimes I would be a little bit silly or work on a would you rather question or do something to really distract their mind from whatever was causing them such big emotion. And then we were able to sort of focus and figure out what to do next. The second benefit that happens when you use a distraction coping skill is it can help those kids who tend to perseverate on things they can't control. So, when I've worked with kids with anxiety before, what happens is, we talk about what's causing their anxiety. We talk about ways to manage it. And we, work through it all. And then at the end, it seems like we go back to the beginning and they're anxious again and they're talking about, having a hard time getting focused on something other than what is causing them such worry or anxiety. And so one of the things that has been helpful for them is to be able to distract themselves with something else. So they're not constantly perseverating on something. Instead of constantly focusing on maybe their grandma is sick, or maybe something is going wrong in school, or maybe there's a friend's conflict. Instead of focusing on that, then maybe they listen to a podcast, or maybe they do a puzzle, or maybe they create something. All of these things are things that can help them sort of break that cycle of perseverating on whatever is making them worry. And the third benefit is that play is a natural stress reliever for kids. Play is a way that kids work through their emotions, especially younger ones. If you have little kids at home, you may see them, especially right now in times of corona and with quarantine, you may see them playing around with, more hospitals. You may see them playing more with masks and, people being close together versus people being far apart. Those sorts of themes in play right now make a lot of sense because kids are trying to work through what is happening in the world in their play. And it helps them relieve stress. It helps them communicate what's going on in their brains when they use play. I actually think play is a perfect thing to be using in the time of COVID because it really does help kids relieve stress. It helps kids communicate what's going on. Now, more than ever, kids need to play and do fun activities. This will help them relieve that stress, give their brains a break. And right now, your kids may have more downtime than they typically do. Maybe because they're not attending soccer or basketball or all of the different sports that they used to do or all of the different activities that they used to do after school. They may have a little bit more downtime. I would encourage them to play in lots of different ways. Encourage them to draw, to build, to write comic books, create their own board games or card games, play in real life or virtually with their friends. So I think it's really something that we can use right now. It's a way that we can help our kids manage the uncertainty of life right now by encouraging them to play. So I have a few resources about distraction coping skills. So the first thing I want to just point out to you, and I'll link to this in the show notes as well, is that I have a free set of would you rather questions. So just fun ways to get kids started and thinking about some would you rather questions, fun ways to, have a conversation at dinner. You can have virtual play dates and use those as a way to spark conversation. Maybe kids can use that and be inspired by that and make up their own would you rather questions, which is kind of fun. So I have that available over on my store. And then if you're looking for a bunch of different play ideas and activities, you can take a peek at the distraction deck. There's a ton of activities on there, just lots of good playing prompts, activity prompts, design your own tree house, do the newspaper and tape challenge, work on a jigsaw puzzle, those sorts of fun things. So if you're interested in that, take a peek at the distraction deck. And then I want to let you know about something that's coming out in the future. I'm going to have an activity book that's focused on distraction coping skills for kids. It's in the works right now. We're working hard behind the scenes on it. If you join the newsletter, you'll be the first to know when it's available. So I'll link in the show notes to my newsletter as well, so you can go ahead and join that. If you like this podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. Subscribe so you get notified when new episodes come out. And one last thing, please don't forget about yourself. Take a few minutes, have a little fun, and have an awesome day.